Now, when buying a house, you have so many options. You can buy a single family home. You can buy a townhome, whether that's attached or detached. And you can also buy a condo. In this video, I want to talk specifically about townhomes, and if you're moving to the Seattle area, things you should think about when you're looking to purchase a townhome over here. As always, I'm Bryce Greenleaf. I love helping you guys out, those of you that are moving over to the Seattle area, or if you already live in Seattle and you're looking to purchase a home. I am an active real estate agent in this area, so if that does sound like you're looking to purchase, whether it's a townhome, a single family home, or a condo, feel free to reach out, be more than happy to help. But like I said, I want to talk about townhomes specifically on this video. It's a popular product for people to purchase, especially when they're moving over here or they're purchasing their first home, to allow them to get into something that might be a little bit more budget friendly. So let's dive into the pros and the cons of buying a townhome. Now, there are townhomes all over the Seattle metropolitan area, whether you want to be right in Seattle proper, maybe you want to be over on the other side of the lake in Bellevue, or one of the outlying suburbs a little bit further out. Just about every city around here is gonna have options for townhomes. They are all over the place. Whether that's something built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or whether that's brand new construction, there are a lot of options. Now, really quick, before I dive into the pros and cons, I wanna talk about something that's very, very important when you're buying a townhome. Most often when you buy a townhome, you're buying into a condo complex. That townhome is gonna be within an HOA, and that HOA likely manages a lot of the exterior components of that townhome. Unlike a single family home, with this HOA, they are in charge of so much when it comes to keeping up in the community and keeping up with roofs and siding and all this stuff. We want to make sure you're reviewing the financial documents of that condo complex, of that HOA, before purchasing that townhome, because we want to make sure you're buying into a healthy and well-run HOA. But let's jump into my pros and cons list I have here. Let's just start on the positive side. Let's start with the pros. So number one is pretty obvious. It's less maintenance. I mean, when you buy into a townhome, it's not like buying a single family home. Like I mentioned, most oftentimes within that townhome complex, the HOA is going to be managing the roof, the siding, oftentimes the windows, oftentimes the exterior maintenance when it comes to any garden space or sometimes even lawn space. So there's a lot less that you have to deal with as a homeowner when you're buying into a townhome or an HOA in general. That's less time you have to worry about maintaining your home, and more time you can focus on other things in life like family and hobbies and work. Now, the second pro here is because it's more budget friendly, you're often getting better finishes for your money, meaning your money can stretch further for you and you can get into a townhome that may have much nicer interior features than a single family home would at that same budget. This is a huge driver for a lot of people because they have a certain set budget. They can get a single family home, but maybe it's something that was built in the 70s and 80s and hasn't really been updated. But for that same budget, they can get a townhome that's new construction, that has all the top of the line finishes that new homes have these days. Along with this, you can sometimes even get more space. Maybe your budget allows you to buy a smaller 1,000 or 1,300 square foot single family home, but maybe with your budget, you could get an 1,800 to 2,400 square foot townhome. So this provides more options, just more budget friendly, especially here in the Seattle area, much more budget friendly for those that are kind of weighing single family versus townhome. Another pro here is very oftentimes you're gonna be in a more convenient and commuter friendly location. Now, this isn't the case for every townhome. You can find townhomes that are tucked back and feel more suburban. But most often and a lot of times you are gonna see these townhomes, these complexes close to major thoroughfares, major highways, so you can get to and from places a lot easier. So whether you rely on public transportation or you just wanna be close to the freeway, or you wanna be in areas that are more walkable to restaurants and stuff that are close by where you don't have to drive 10, 15, 20 minutes to get to everything, townhomes can be often much more convenient for those that rely on being in a commuter-friendly or just walkable location. Pro number 4 is it's a great future investment. So if this is something you're saying, hey, We want to buy as our first home. We want to live here for a couple of years, a few years, but we eventually see ourselves upgrading to a larger single family home with maybe a larger yard tucked back in the suburbs. But this is where we're starting with a townhome, and maybe we're thinking about once we upgrade to a larger place, we could hang on to this townhome and rent it out, keep it as an investment. This is something that people do very often. What's great about keeping a townhome for an investment is, I mentioned it, much less oversight, much less maintenance. Because the HOA is maintaining typically the entire exterior, you're not going to have to deal with that with renters in your place. So often can remove some of that headache of owning an investment property. Along with that, townhomes typically rent pretty easily because it's geared towards people that maybe are just starting out, that maybe are wanting to be in a more commuter-friendly location. There's a lot of things that townhomes appeal to people that are renting in this area. Now, another pro for a townhome versus, say, a condo, whereas a regular condo, you can have neighbors on every wall around you. You can have neighbors above you, below you, to the left, to the right. With a condo, it's typically just a regular one-story unit with, again, shared walls all over the place. The benefit to a townhome, while yes, you're going to have a couple shared walls, one or two, with a townhome, you don't have anybody above you or below you. Townhomes typically are going to be 2 or 3 stories in this area, and you're only going to have neighbors on the left or the right. And if you have an end unit, you may only have one neighbor and one shared wall. Now, I've heard from many people that have owned townhomes in this area, they very rarely ever have noise issues with those neighbors to the left and to the right. That can become a bit more of an issue in condo complexes, especially when you have somebody above you and there's kids up there running around, stomping on the floor. That's much more of an issue in a condo complex versus a townhome is typically a bit more quiet. All right, so those are some of the major pros to owning a townhome. Let's talk about some of the cons here as well. Con number 1 is the HOA. While this is also a pro, like I mentioned in some instances, the HOA can also be a con for some people because you are much more restricted on what you can do. With a single family home, especially if you're in a non-HOA neighborhood, you can do just about anything you want. You can plant whatever you want in your garden. You can paint your home whatever color you want. There's all sorts of things you can do in a single family home that you can't do in a townhome. They're not going to let you just paint the exterior of your townhome. That's up to the HOA and they choose the color and all that kind of stuff. Some townhomes will be more strict than others when it comes to things on your front porch, things on your balcony if you have one. Maybe you have a grill and you want it out there. Some HOAs may have restrictions against that. Plenty of them will still allow a grill. There are going to be stricter guidelines on what you can and can't do. Things you can plant if you have like an outdoor garden space. Leaving stuff on your front patio. You can't just leave bicycles or toys out there if you have kids. So it is a bit more limiting when it comes to buying a townhome because of that HOA. Now, I mentioned this in the pros section compared to a condo, but this is the con, is you are going to have shared walls with a townhome. Now, like I mentioned, it's only going to be your actual walls on the left or right side, not up and down. Now, if you have an end unit, you're only going to have one shared wall, so that's a huge plus. Maybe you're in the middle and you have 2 shared walls. So this is a con. There is that chance that you do have some noise issues. Now, like I mentioned, that's typically much more of an issue with condos versus townhomes, but it is something to keep in mind and be aware of, that it is possible it's something you could deal with. It just depends on your neighbor. And now con number 3 here is less outdoor space. Now, this is an obvious one. When you're buying a single family home, you're often usually getting a good size yard. With a townhome, there's really 2 things that can happen. One, there are townhomes with no yard whatsoever. You're just going to have a straight townhome up and down, and you may have the garage on the backside. So you have no yard. It's just an alleyway with your garage. That's often the case here in the Seattle area. Now, it's also pretty easy to find townhomes that will have a little bit of a yard. You know, your garage is going to be on the front side of the unit, more typical to like a single family home. And then you're going to have a little bit of a yard space in the back side. Maybe that's fenced, maybe it's a little grass, maybe it's just a little garden area with a paver patio. There are certainly places with a decent sized outdoor space, but it's not going to be anything compared to what you can find with many single family homes. So if you have large dogs, you have kids running around like crazy, some people prefer a single family home because it does provide more yard space. Now, the caveat to that is some of these townhome communities will have a park within the community or amenities to kind of support whether you have a dog or kids. They'll have trails and walkways. So if you don't have a yard space, you may have some alternatives within the community. All right, so those are really the main pros and cons when you're buying a townhome that you need to think about. Hopefully this info was helpful for you. If you're coming over here looking to buy a townhome, like I said, I'm an active real estate agent here in the Seattle area. Would be more than happy to help you out with your move and with your purchase. Feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching this one.